Now we'll talk about English in South Asia, which is another prominent area of the world where a vast majority of English language users live. The British East India Company, which was founded in 1599, introduced English in the subcontinent or South Asia. In some of the elitist domains of power, for example, government, industry, judiciary, education, commerce, and trade. And at the moment, South Asia is the third largest area in terms of the users of English. About 40 million users of English live in this area. English developed as a medium of control in this area even before the partition and after the partition. When the South Asia was ruled by the British Empire, English was introduced to create an English-based subculture, which is quite obvious from the famous words coming from Lord Macaulay's Minutes. He emphasized that by introducing English language, the British Empire should focus at creating a race of Indians who would be Indian by their color or race, but they would be English by their manners. So, introduction of English had a clear social and educational purpose, which actually aimed at changing the culture within South Asia. English still continues to be a dominant language in this region, which now comprises various nation states. There has been resistance in various parts of South Asia against English language and in the sport of local or indigenous languages, but this resistance has always been countered by some expansion of English in some key areas of social and official uses. For example, English has now emerged as the language of social media, even in South Asia. However, there have been some variations in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. If we look at Sri Lanka, it changed English and made Sinhala as its official language in 1956. However, this change brought in some social rift because Tamil people living in Sri Lanka didn't accept this change. Even during this era, English continues to be the language of westernized elite, and by the 1995, it again turned into the national language and the language of prestigious employment. In Bangladesh, which got its freedom in 1971, it was Bengali which was emphasized by then government as the national language, and they focused a lot on promoting their language because it was one of their slogans during their freedom struggle or fight. But after that, if we see the gates of globalization opened and westernized elite got some power, they re-emphasized the importance of English in Bangladeshi society, and now it has secured an important place in Bangladeshi education system through private schools and education institutions. In Nepal, again, it was globalization which pressed upon the introduction and the importance of English in Nepalese society. Similarly, in Maldives and Bhutan, English is taught in schools, and it is also important in these areas because of the effectiveness of this language in the rich tourism industry of these areas. In India and Pakistan, English continues to prosper, and we have never seen a serious question against the spread of this language. In South Asian governments, many people believe that the governments teach common people in vernacular languages, whereas they preserve English for the elitist of the society. And based on such education, there are various assumptions. For example, many people believe that English users in these societies are more democratic, liberal, and educated people than those people who do not know or speak English. Therefore, English divide in this society is not a simple question of medium of instruction or a language used in a society. Rather, it is embedded in various socio-cultural and economic dynamics, which is desperately needed to be studied if we want to look into the spread of English in Pakistani or Indian societies in detail. These South Asian countries also shifted from teaching English through literature to ELT, that is English language teaching, and considered English as a foreign or second language. This was not a simple shift. It had other implications as well. For example, this emphasized the importance of some local varieties of English which were developing in various South Asian countries. For example, Pakistani English, Indian English, Sri Lankan English, etc. So these Englishes were thought to be included in the teaching material also, because they were developing at a reasonably good volume. So these local languages or varieties of English language may not be considered as incorrect language, rather as possible alternatives. There has also been a stream of writing in English in these South Asian societies. Probably India takes lead in this regard. A lot of literature in English is being produced in India and then also in Pakistan. Overall, we can say that English has a dynamic presence in South Asian societies. On one hand, it is a symbol or a marker of socioeconomic and political wealth and power of westernized elite. And on the other hand, it may also be considered as a sign of hope for local or lower class people. And they can, by learning this language, they can aspire to become a part of a powerful elite. So it gives them a kind of hope.